This is the time where it's great to be in a community because then you guys can all, value from being not just in relationship with each other, but possibly in partnership in certain areas with each other. Welcome back, everyone, to Campfire Capitalism. I'm your host, Desmond Dixon, and today we have no Heather, but we do have an amazing guest, Mr. Tony Martignetti. And this guy is a trusted advisor. He's a coach. He's an experienced creator, author, podcast host, and speaker. He brings together over 25 years of business and management experience, formal training, and extreme curiosity to elevate leaders and equip them with the tools to navigate through change and unlock their true potential, guys. Potential, big time. Before becoming a founder and chief inspiration officer of Inspired Purpose Coaching, he was a finance and strategy executive with experience working with some of the world's leading life science companies. Along his journey, he also managed small businesses and ran a financial consulting company. Tony is the host of the Virtual Campfire podcast, and the author of Climbing the Right Mountain, Navigating the Journey to an Inspired Life. Tony, man, welcome to the show.
I'm so thrilled. I love your energy, Desmond. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to digging into our conversation.
Sweet, man. Yeah, we're gonna just pump some oxygen into this campfire here, and let's chat, man. So, man, I love starting off with these episodes with like who the guest is. So, Tony, man, just kind of give us an idea of your journey. Yes, we got the macro of it, but just talk to us about like your personal perspective of the journey for the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah, I'll start with just this idea that like when I was a kid, I was an artist. And, I thought that I was going to be doing art for the rest of my life, but then things change and well-meaning adults come in and tell you, oh, you're going to find something more lucrative. That's something's going to give you a life that you can, be able to afford to live. Don't want to be the starving artist, if you know what I mean. And I decided to go to the path of becoming a doctor. So a pre-med major, and then eventually switch my gears into going into business. So I've touched everything from arts to the sciences to business. And I eventually got myself into the world of working in biotech from the business perspective. Really successful career, really honored to work in that field, helping to enable the science for some rare diseases and oncology and many different disease areas. And really felt like, gifted to do that work. But people used to always say to me, oh, you're not the typical finance person, or you're not the typical this. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, well, that's fine. But this is what I do. This is what I'm going to keep on working really hard at what I do until I got to this place where I said, I'm going to start listening to what people say. And maybe I'll explore what it is that I'm doing that is not really showing up for real, like what I need to be showing up for real. And so I decided to shift gears and connect with who I really am, my true calling. And that's where my creative side started showing back up. I decided to become a coach, and I left the corporate world to explore this passion. Now, this is not for everybody. Not everyone needs to jump off the career ladder and start their own endeavor, but it was for me. And I decided that that's the path I would follow. And that's what got me into the world of being an advisor, coach, writer. I do a lot of different things, and it really has unlocked who I am as a professional to help leaders to become who they really need to be in the world.
Man, that's incredible. Well, one thing I noticed with, interviewing all these different like entrepreneurs and creators and investors is there's like this pattern of willing to pivot and shift, right? And like having the courage to do it. So like, talk to me about, some support systems, like, when you started your entrepreneurial journey, like, talk to me a little bit about like your network and like that transition process. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I love that, because this question is interesting. At first, you have your own personal challenges to overcome, because you struggle with like, how do I tell people who I am now? Like, how do I pivot into a new world where I'm not known as a coach or an advisor, a leadership advisor? What before people knew me as this finance person, and how do I rely on that network of people who knew me before, and how do I change my stripes, if you will? So there's a lot of personal struggles, the confidence that needs to be built. And one conversation at a time, slowly but surely, you start to talk to your network and they start to see, oh yeah, this makes absolute sense. This is who you are. And that network that knew me before started to see me in a new way, in a new light, and realize that this transformation I'm going through was what I needed to do to become fully me 2.0. And and I think I love the fact that you really keen in on this network effect, because it truly is not a one-person journey. Everything takes it takes a community, a village, to really ensure that you're on this path of creating anything big in the world. Don't go it alone.
Man, so so let's unpack this a little bit. So talk to me about, so let's go here, because the network effects and the community in this village, it takes a village to raise a kid, right? And your business is a kid, right? Like you need all of this support. So talk to me about like creating like better connections, right? Like going deeper into your connections and like how that served you in your business.
Yeah. So what at first, and I'll share a quote. This is a quote that I absolutely love sharing, because when you first start a business, the first thing you think is that, like, if I'm in competition with other people, then what happens is, I can't share my secrets, right? But what I realize is that amateurs compete and professionals create. So that quote really has driven me throughout the early days and still drives me today. And the reality is that, like, if I close myself off to other people, to other coaches, other, people in the world, then what happens is I would try and compete against them and be in a scarcity mode of like, if I win, they have to lose. But instead, what I did is I started to embrace this idea that, like, well, I can learn from them, and I can learn what works for them. They can help me to expand the pie, and we can look at ways to work together, to collaborate, to create a bigger pie. And that's what was a game changer for me. I learned along the way that the more I got to know other people in my space and in the community at large, I was able to expand who I was. And that connection was huge. Make sense?
Man, yeah, I think that landed, because like when you try to be the lone wolf, it really puts you in a really interesting situation, because a wolf pack definitely will be more sustainable, especially when winter hits, right? When things are not the current economic environment we're in, where, the economy is contracting, people aren't spending as much money, right? There's a lot more fear. This is the time where it's great to be in a community, because then you guys can all, value from being not just in relationship with each other, but possibly in partnership in certain areas with each other. And then you could be a tool for them when they know someone that's going through something, because entrepreneurs are just really problem solvers. And so if you have a certain tool, you can just be that tool on their belt, right? To help. Exactly. Oh man, it's huge, man. It's huge. So talk to me a little bit about, really what you're doing specifically on the advising and the coaching side. So like, what's your tool, so I can add it to my belt?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's many different types of tools that I work with, but I would start by just speaking to the types of people I work with. Most of all, I work with mostly accomplished leaders, people who have gotten to this place in their career where they feel like, gosh, like I need more fulfillment or something else in my life. They're kind of asking the question of like, now what? Like, what happens now that I've gotten to this place that maybe I've plateaued, or feeling like I should be feeling super successful, but I don't feel that. And so I usually help them thinking differently. And one of the exercises I'll share right here, which is I call it expand your vision and narrow your focus. And so I get people to, step away from the wall that they're facing, the thing that is really, the pattern they're stuck in. And I get them to step away and look at new possibilities, to look around and see what they're missing. Once they see new possibilities, that's great. But the problem is it can feel almost disabling when you have too many possibilities. So the next step is really to narrow your focus, saying, what's the next thing I'm going to focus on? So important to have knowledge, but knowledge without action becomes meaningless, right? So I get them to focus and saying, what's the next step you're willing to take? And how will you get rid of all the other things that distract you from doing that next thing? Even if it's the wrong thing, like ultimately, what will it be that will be the focus of your next experiment that will allow you to understand, is this the next thing in my path? And what will I learn? And then how can I take the next step from that? So that's just one example of the type of work that I do. But there's a myriad of different ways that I show up and different modalities I work with.
Got it. So this is interesting. So essentially, like, you're working with like that next plateau, like someone's obviously on the plateau, they're a high level, like executive and visionary, and it's just really taking them to the next level. Man, it's just crazy how, when we get stuck sometimes, right? Like, and doing nothing sometimes hard, like to think and recalibrate, and then have the courage to then pivot and try something new that's outside of your comfort zone. So what's some like common things that you see, some common, problem, I wouldn't say saying problems, but obstacles or, things that come up that, you see from these like high level executives or visionaries?
Yeah, one of the most common ones I would say is that there's this sunk cost element where, people have invested a lot of their time and efforts into a particular company or into a particular career, and they say to themselves like, this isn't lighting me up any longer. And I don't know if it's like, I think my interest lies someplace else, but I can't do anything about that. And I say, can't, that's a strong word, maybe not. Maybe there's something you can do. Maybe there's elements of taking the skills that you've learned and using them in different ways so that you can use them as foundations in another field. You just have to be able to, what I call, collect the dots. You've collected the dots through your career, but then you connect the dots to something else by seeing, how does this skill, these things that I've accumulated in my career, how could they be applied someplace else? And how would they be of value in maybe another industry, another arena than what I'm currently in? And sometimes it's just purely just getting reinvigorated or reset in the way of looking at your current role and saying, yeah, I think I just lost sight of what was important to me in this role. Why did I get into this field? Let's say the field of finance. Was it, the numbers? Was it the analytics? And I just kind of lost sight of that. Like that.
Yeah. That lands big time. That lands. So let's talk a little bit about your pod, man. So talk to us a little about your pod and like, what's the vision and the purpose for that? And let's go from there.
Cool. Yeah. The podcast, which is interesting because if I think about it, like 3-4 years ago, I wouldn't even have, really ever considered having a podcast, but it came out of nowhere. It was almost like a flash in the night. And it's something that was saying like, you need to do this. And the whole idea behind the podcast is it's called the Virtual Campfire, as you said before. And I love the idea about being around a campfire. There's something about it that's stories being shared, intimate stories, and people really having that sense of, of being able to, share their journeys through what I call flashpoints. That's what, the whole concept of the show is. It's people sharing their transformation, their journeys to getting to where they are. They don't just show up doing amazing things in the world. There's been a journey getting them there. And what I try to do is uncover their story through these flashpoints, these moments that have ignited their gifts into the world. And it's been really beautiful in the sense that I've had, business leaders, coaches, thought leaders, authors, a lot of just really amazing people who have come on and shared insights. And then, what it is that's really that they've learned about themselves that can be powerful for other people to hear, because that's what this is for. It's not just about, hey, self-indulging them into their stories, but it's about helping others who may be feeling like, yeah, I think I'm in that place. I'm stuck. I need to hear that so that I can move forward in my life. So
I love talking to other podcasters. So this is super interesting. So like, have you found, starting a podcast has like unraveled some other, like highlighted some other amazing things outside of like providing value to the audience? Like, has other things came up that were, unpredictable that, that came out of it?
Oh, of course. It's what's amazing is that, first of all, we talked earlier about connections and networks. I mean, I've been able to build relationships. Some of the people who've been on my podcast have been clients, and some of them have, been collaborators, and, now some of them are lifelong friends now. So it's been beautiful what's transpired from that, but it's also just the learning that has come from it. I've learned so much from having these people on that I feel like almost selfish because it's a gift for everyone else, but it's truly a gift for me to be able to have, these conversations and see what really comes up through it.
Don't you feel like a bunch of like an abundance in the podcasting space?
Yeah.
I'm bringing this up for the audience because yes, we have so much fun here on the pod and we love just giving value, but there's so much amazing things that happen behind the scenes where, people are introducing each other and, prepping. And then after the show, I mean, there's just so much fun in this space that it's honestly addicting, man. Like I thought about starting at a second one just because I'm like, I want to maybe talk about this. And I'm like, no. I need to, like you said, I need to narrow my focus, widen my vision. Right. Like, so I'm running with that one. I'm running with that, Tony. Yeah. So this is some good stuff, man. So, man, you're such an interesting guy because, like you said, you came from the life sciences, you then moved into, on the business side and the corporate side. And then you it sounds like you went into the financing a little bit. So like, talk to me a little bit about, like some lessons in business, because this is an entrepreneur heavy podcast, right? We love sales, we love marketing. Like, just share with us some insights from a high level, as a high level business guy. Some business lessons that you've learned on your journey.
Absolutely. And one of the things that, I've always found really interesting because of my finance background is we're always about taking measured risks. I mean, you don't want to be holding yourself back from doing things that are potentially going to change the dynamics of your business, but it's about doing it in a way that allows you to say, if I take this risk, what am I putting at stake? Is this something that is a worthy risk, or is it something that's going to put me in a place where I potentially could be, jeopardizing my future and the people who work for me? So, I call it measured risk because it's like you're really thinking it through, but it doesn't paralyze you in the sense that you're not making any moves. You're making moves, but they're all thought through. And that's in the face of uncertainty. So I think that's one thing that I always think about. And the second thing is making sure that you think people first, like the people you have on board. You want to make sure that you're bringing on board people who are not just great technically, but that have the right attitude. The people who are going to be there when the chips fall down, because they constantly do. And you want to make sure you have people who got your back during those periods that are challenging. And they compliment you, not compliment you in the, oh, you're so nice, but like really compliment your skills and could also challenge you. Because I think the key thing with teams, especially small teams, is you want healthy debate. So a lot of the work I've done is around teams. I'm always talking about you want like some good friction on the team, but healthy friction, which is how innovation happens. When two people come together and they constantly agree, then nothing great happens. But if you have two people come together and they respectfully challenge each other and sometimes disagree and say, we should do this, no, we should do that, and then you eventually find a way that you get the better idea out of the two of you, that's even better.
Man, that's deep. Yeah. That's deep. I don't know if you got more, but man, that's deep, like healthy, man, because then you're like, actually vetting and going deeper into before you make a decision, right? And I guess that kind of parlays into the risk management part, because now you're taking risks that are actually thought out. And then also the team gets bought in on it. So everyone's voice is heard. Exactly. Oh man. Yeah. So that's really important in terms of culture. So, man, that was really good, man. So the team aspect, and then like parlaying risk on the finance side, because obviously cash flow and working capital is probably the biggest thing in the business, right? It's like, do you have enough money in the bank to pay your vendors and pay your people, right? Doesn't matter how big the deals are, it's about the flow. So it's fascinating, man. So, let's talk about this. So let's say a certain business reaches a certain height, right? They're absolutely crushing it. They're doing like 8 or 9 figures in revenue. They have a stable, stable employees. They got stable growth. Let's just say like the executive team or the founder or the visionary is hitting to a certain point where they're not as like you said, they're not as like motivated, but like they felt like they're thinking about exiting or, what's next. I mean, what's some advice to like, reorient a high level team of executives to like keep pushing the envelope, not getting complacent, right? Because I think that's probably a little bit of common, right? Getting complacent. So what's your advice there, like to actually like push to, continue to grow or redefine the vision? Or like, have you worked with any agencies, or not agencies, but any companies where, they need to redo their vision a little bit to go bigger because they've had so much massive success? Like, have you been in those kind of situations?
Yeah. And there's 2 things that came to mind when you were describing this. The first one is not really answering your question, but I'll say it anyways, is you have to check in with yourself from time to time and say, am I the right person to take this to the next level? Because oftentimes, especially with founders, there's this ego that goes along with it, which is say, this is my baby, and I started this, and I'm the one who should be continuing to lead this. But sometimes you may not be the right person to lead this going forward. So being able to question, am I the right person to take this to the next level? That's the one thing that I always think about first, is to confirm, am I the right person? Do I have the right skills? And do I have the right energy to move this forward? That's the first thing. The second thing is always be ready to disrupt. Disrupting your business and being the one who disrupts it is the most powerful way to think about your business. Is like, what are we doing right now that we could be doing differently? How can we embrace constraints and the different levers that potentially a business could utilize to actually catapult it to the next lever? And that also gives the team some creative challenges to think differently, which if I were to kind of like put one theme through all of this, it's how can I challenge my thinking? How can I challenge my thinking so that I'm not being so rigid in the way I think? Because oftentimes, we think, well, this has worked, so it should continue to work. Well, that's not true. Sometimes it worked, but at some point, the external environment's changing, and you have to continue to evolve your thinking and be okay with being wrong and let in new thinking. And that's where, you continue to move to that next level of your business and your own personal evolution as well.
Boom, you hit the nail on the head. It's like that complacency, like everyone's just coming in, checking boxes. I love that. You have to disrupt your company, because if you don't, then someone might come in and external force might come and disrupt you, right?
Yeah.
So that's super fascinating, especially with like an example, like I guess like Facebook and TikTok, right? Like TikTok's coming in and put a ton of business pressure and forcing them to, really change the way they do business, right? And I think they're going to eventually, hit the nail on the head, because they always do it time and time again. I'm pretty impressed with those guys. So this was fun, man. So how can people find you? Like, what's the best, like, do you have, before we do that, like, do you have anything that you can, anything else that you can leave behind, so that the audience can maybe continue to follow you?
Absolutely. So I'll start with, the best place to find me is my website, inspiredpurposecoach.com. And if you go there, there's a leadership assessment tool that I set up. And it's kind of fun because you go in there and it allows you to kind of find out, like, where am I now in my journey? as a leader, and where are the things that potentially gaps from between where I am now and where I want to go, in a bunch of different areas of your life, as a leader. And I use this with my clients, and I do it as a starting point, and then I also use it as a check-in point later in life, later in our journey together to see how things are coming along. So it's a great tool, and it's a great place to start. And then the other place that you can find me is on LinkedIn. That's one of the other social media places I hang out most. So you can find me there.
Sick. And we're going to actually put that calculator in the show notes. So definitely go check that out. If you're driving, check it out later. You take a mental thought, but check it out. Tony, man, this was great. I love your energy. We're really grateful to have another campfire on the campfire. This is great. Big fire. But yeah, thanks for coming to the show, man.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So guys, thank you. You made it to the end. You gave us your most precious resource on the planet, which is your time. Definitely feel free to check out the show notes and check out the calculator, right? You have nothing to lose. Go do it. Mm-hmm. And we'll see you at the next campfire. Bye.